Good evening, morning, afternoon, night, whenever you find it most convenient to get behind the wheel and hold your hands at 10 and 2 or 3 and 9, whatever they do it, and listen to the Bonfire. I, as always, am joined by DJ.
I hate Omar Gonzalez.
Okay, and Tim.
I'm more equivocal on Omar Gonzalez than that.
And very special guest for this episode. He's already been on an episode before, and now he's back again, this time under a different name, Eli Lesser of Eli Lesser TV.
I love Omar Gonzalez.
These are three very different different perspectives, I guess.
Hey, that's great for content, though, right?
Omar Gonzalez. I guess, yeah. We'll have a great conversation about this. But we have a few other things to converse before that. Some points that have come up of recent. The U.S. Olympic roster has dropped with a few names on and not on. One name that is included is former Fire player Gaga Slanina. He is included in the Olympic roster. No Chris Brady, no Brian Gutierrez, though.
Yeah, the Guti being left off just based on form so far this season isn't that much of a surprise. He had been in the picture. He didn't get a call up the last time. Brady not getting called up is a little bit more of a surprise. And it's possibly based on team form more than anything else. He wouldn't have been the preferred choice either way. So it's likely he probably would have been the third goalkeeper. So it's not necessarily that it's that he would have had a lot of playing time, because he wouldn't. But I mean, give the man a couple weeks in Paris.
True. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to Paris? I raise my hand slowly.
But it is not that good of a city.
When you're there for the Olympics and you get to tell people you're an Olympic athlete, though, the only thing is he's already got a girlfriend. But other than that, everything would just be perfect.
Yeah, but he would have to sleep on one of those cardboard beds in the Olympic Village.
No, that was only in Japan.
No, that's just Russia. That's just Russia.
Oh, I thought they were bringing him back again.
I hadn't heard about that.
That'd be so sad.
They're higher quality cardboard beds here, but in Russia, they're literally just basically a mat on the floor.
Oh dear. Oh, well. So yeah, no. Hopefully we will see both Brian and Brady called up to the U.S. at some point, one way or another. But we do have a Fire player that was called up to the U19s, Sergio Oregel. He's been called up to the U19s. They're playing a friendly against Argentina on June 7th, and they will be playing June 11th against Montevideo as they prepare for the Under-20 CONCACAF Championships in Guanajuato, Mexico. Top 4 teams make it to the 2025 FIFA U20 World Cup in Chile. So good on Sergio Oregel.
Yeah, they've got a good chance of making the top 4. And obviously, Youth World Cups are great opportunities for just showcasing young talent, giving people experience in a little bit higher pressure situations than they would necessarily encounter other places, and are fun to watch on TV. So
all the power to him, and congrats on making it to the youth team. And one little bit of news, I guess. This happened before the game. There was an email and sort of message, a letter from our owner, Joe Mansueto, to season ticket holders. The email was overall about renewing season tickets. The club has started, as of this year, auto renewal of season tickets, and that you're able to, as of July 1st, if you don't opt out, your season tickets get automatically renewed. A lot of fans aren't happy because some prices are going up around 20% for most renewing season ticket holders based on reports. And the letter in and of itself was, I don't want to say completely tone deaf, but it's not what fans wanted to hear, essentially.
It's very much a corporate email.
Yeah. So I think there's some filler. I think it's the third paragraph that it almost makes, so there's basically just thank you is the first paragraph. The second is, I've lived in Chicago a long time. He talks about, and I'm committed to building a great club through continued investments in our first team, including the construction of our world-class performance center, which will provide a state-of-the-art training environment to help attract and develop players at all levels, which that is, I think, a true statement. And I think everyone's excited about that. It's going to be one of the nicer facilities in MLS. It's a $100 million investment in the club's future, which is great. But then I think it's the next paragraph that causes issues.
Yeah, he basically says the only thing that like addresses the woes of the club right now is when he says, while the results this season haven't been what any of us were hoping for.
Then he says,
that's pretty much it.
Then he says there are many reasons to be excited about the direction of the club. And then lists things about the Plays program, which is cool and award-winning. It brings soccer to youth in Chicago public schools, expansion of our youth program in the Chicago area, and then the Discovery Centers, which basically are a way of helping to recruit talent into the academies. And then these youth and academy players are the future of our first team, and I couldn't be more thrilled to watch them represent our club for years to come. So there's literally 4 to 5 times as much wording about the academies and youth team as there is about the first team results, which are just that they've been disappointing.
Yeah, like no disrespect to the academies or like the younger players, because they have been doing fairly well for themselves, especially like Fire 2 and everything. But that's not what keeps people renewing season tickets.
Well, that's not what you're getting season tickets for, right? Like
yeah, that's what you're getting season tickets for. And a lot of Fire fans have shown on social media that they are opting out, and the team even has a drop down where you can select why you're opting out, and a lot of people are selecting team performance. So, oh dear.
At this point, it's kind of like, if you're focusing on the academy more than you are on the first team, then there's no reason to renew it. That's where I'm at. And granted, I say as somebody that doesn't have season tickets because I'm 1,000 miles away, but still.
But you've got a car now, DJ. It's your lack of dedication, really.
Yeah,
come on, DJ. You're the ultimate plastic fan.
Listen, I'm not like my mom. I can't drive 1,000 miles in 20 seconds, okay?
That is quite possibly the most Florida thing that anyone has ever told me on a podcast.
I was about to say, damn, I need her to take me places. Get me across the country like that. Boom.
My mom's not Floridian. She's just Irish.
Yep.
You mix the Irish with the Floridians, and I guess it makes sense.
But yeah, I think that it was disappointing. And the other thing that's worth noting is that you do get, based on reports and screenshots and stuff that I've seen from people, you do get like a total amount for the season tickets, but it seems like the monthly payment is, for those that are on a payment plan, which I think a lot of fans probably are because it's interest freer, and lowers the cost. The 20% price increase gets largely hidden by the fact that last year and in previous years, monthly payments were, because the season ticket renewal started later, you had 10 payments for your season tickets, then you basically had 2 months where you didn't have a payment. And then with the automatic renewal, they're rolling to like a 12-month system. So the 20% equates to basically a slight increase in a monthly payment. So it doesn't look like your ticket price is going up very much, even though it will. And just to like be fair to the team, they also announced some, not details on them, but that there will be some new season ticket benefits next year, including a possibility of like touring the performance center or a like breakfast with the team president and owner Joe Mansueto, stuff like that. So they're trying to increase the benefits, and free parking will stay again for people that have 2 or more season tickets. But I think just the timing of it combined with the results and not really making any statement about the team being better, I think is what bothers people, because it almost feels like it's shucks, if only there was something any of us could do to improve the results on the first team side.
Yeah, but even like some season ticket holders were saying that even some of the benefits that were promised for this season and the last few seasons have either not showed up, like it hasn't happened, or they're just like not worth it. And that's one of the reasons why, well, the main reason why I stopped getting season tickets was because when they started doing college discounts, it just ended up being cheaper, and it outweighed the benefits from being a season ticket holder. But yeah, no, that was on top of that. Like there just wasn't enough things that made me be like, oh, having season tickets is more worth it than just getting student tickets for that are like per match at least $10 cheaper.
Yeah, and even without that option, on the secondary market, there's frequently people, if you're willing to go to like unofficial resale sites. Just given that people bought season tickets, especially to get tickets for the match against Miami and don't really care about other matches, you can frequently get, I've been checking periodically, you can frequently get tickets on resale sites for like significantly less than face value, I think, because people bought season tickets and are
I think someone shared that you can get tickets for like as cheap as $7.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons you get season tickets if a building is going to be full, which Soldier Field is not going to be full for the vast, I mean, it has been sold out once for a Fire game in history, is to get a better price. And that's undercut if there's people getting tickets that are then reselling them because they don't want them, which again happens more and more when the results aren't there.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think it's now time to talk about the game that happened for us yesterday, for you guys listening a few days ago, the midweek match against Orlando.
The game that happened is a great summary. I think we're pretty much done here.
The game that happened. Now, for me, I probably have a different perspective of this game because even though there was a lot less people at the game, the club reported that there was an attendance of around 11K. Definitely seemed a lot less than that. We had probably one of the most bumping supporter sections last night, thanks to some English Academy players that were visiting Chicago, and they were in our section and probably made it the most fun this season, at least. So, that's why for me, I guess I have maybe sort of a slightly different perspective on how the game felt at times, because I was having fun, at least in those times. Though we definitely weren't having fun in the first 3 minutes when probably the most goal in soccer history happened, where there was just a convoluted ping pong, or like, how to describe it?
The ball works its way into the
miss after miss after misplay after misplay after miss.
Multiple Fire players failed to clear the ball out. Multiple Orlando players failed to get the ball into the net until eventually Gutierrez just puts the play out of its misery. Now, I don't know why so many people are acting like this is something crazy that they've never seen before, because I remember anyone that has ever watched 5 and 6 year olds play soccer or has been 5 or 6 years old and playing soccer themselves. Like, I have personally been involved in probably a dozen different versions of that goal before I was in second grade. Like,
I was involved in those kind of goals right now when I play recreational soccer with my friends in the park. That's how I score goals as well, when no one's just able to clear it and I just bloop into the back.
You've got like 12 people in the box. Corner. Nobody can get it in. It keeps on pinging off of somebody's shin guards.
That's what it was. This was recreational, or like you mentioned, like first, second graders playing soccer. And it got to the point that like MLS deleted the post of that goal off of social media. Like, oh dear.
Yeah.
Like I'm
but you already know BR Football is gonna find it and repost it and make fun of us or whatever.
It's been reposted multiple times, by the way. You can definitely find it on the web still.
Oh.
Yeah.
I used it today as well. But for me, when I saw that just felt like the epitome of not just the Chicago Fire, but being a Chicago Fire fan. And I felt you guys in that moment where I watched it, and immediately I thought of all of you guys, all the Chicago Fire fans I knew, and I felt bad because I feel like, you guys keep stumbling, and it's not your guys' fault, but just something happens and takes you guys out of your misery every year. And I guess the Facu Torres finish was that email from Mansueto. And I think that's what happened yesterday. And I'm very sorry to you guys. And I every time I come on here, I just apologize for the way you guys are treated by your ownership, by your city, by the league. And I don't know, that goal to me sums it up.
Thank you for keeping us close to heart.
It was, it was, and it happened so early in the match too. It's sort of like, well, there it goes. Cause I think that especially an Orlando team that didn't have Duncan McGuire, who's their leading scorer again this season. And like a lot of their other scorers have really sort of fallen off in form. So they didn't look like the team that scored 55 goals last year. It seemed like a winnable game for a team that hadn't had a win in 8, and somehow it was not a winnable game.
Yeah, no. And after that goal, it seemed like we saw the fire of very recent. It just felt disorganized and everything. We had there was a chance from Kuipers in the 20th minute where he could have easily put it away and ended up just going wide by a few centimeters. You had some shots from distance that either went straight to Galassi or just into space. And it was like, okay. It got to the point where said British students and academy players near us started chanting stuff like, we've got the ball and we've lost the ball, or we've had a shot, and stuff like that. And while it was sad, it was like, yeah, that's funny though. And we were having a laugh about that as well. There was one moment also, I'm pretty sure near the beginning of the game, where there was a possible penalty check. It went to VAR, but they did call it off. And I did see comments from Orlando fans saying that they were snubbed 2 points because of it.
Yeah, it really did look like so. Federico Navarro had been playing more like the Federico Navarro of 2021, 2022. And that meant that he was having a dogged determination to win the ball back.
He had that dog in him to get that ball back, but sometimes it can lead to bad things.
And he very much did, including knocking. I can't remember the Orlando player right now, but made contact with him twice inside the box. It wasn't a call on the pitch. It wasn't a call on VAR. Now, the contact was some of it looked like it was just normal jostling, and that's fine. But some of it kind of looked like it wasn't. I sort of get how on VAR it wasn't a clear and obvious error, just given the angle that the referee had on that. But
yeah,
frankly, if it had, it's one of those things where the referee should have had it initially. I can get it not being a clear and obvious error, but I think on video it was pretty clearly something that should have been caught. I just get how it doesn't rise to that standard. And that would have been a red card for Federico Navarro. It would have changed the complexion of the match from there on out.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oh, well. And that kind of tells you where Orlando's season has been. But I think what really shows that is what happened later in the match, which I think you're going to get to next. But that goal, I think that kind of screamed Orlando's season as well.
Yeah. Well, we did have a goal. As I mentioned in the previous episode, we've been taking those baby steps where we haven't scored a goal in heck of minutes to we score at least one in games.
But no more than one.
And
just the one.
But no more than one. That's true. Just the one.
Don't want to be greedy.
Just the one.
Don't want to be greedy.
No, we can't be. We just gotta make do what we've got and just thank our lucky stars that it's not gonna get any worse. I just jinxed us. So Marin Haile Selassie, he's sort of a few yards, I want to say maybe 10, 20 yards behind the penalty box, plays a really nice ball through to Arnaud Suke to the left side of the box. Kuipers runs in. He gets the ball passed to him into the middle. He sort of taps it with his left foot. It didn't have a lot of power, but it went right underneath Galassi to make it 1-1. When I saw it, I low-key thought Galassi saved it or that it went wide. All of a sudden, everyone was jumping and screaming next to me. I was like, oh my God, it's a goal.
Yes.
We're winning. And I think
Galassi's been so bad.
Yeah, and so bad. I think one of the things that I want to also note is that Kuipers didn't go too much with his celebration. Rewatching the play, you can tell that he is like, oh my gosh, yes. He's like, something is happening. And I think Joe Chats posted an article recently of Hugo Kuipers talking about his frustrations and like how he didn't really celebrate much after that goal because he is still like frustrated how things are going right now.
He also knew he was getting subbed off at that point, and he did exit the match 2 minutes later. So basically, as soon as play was restarted, which I think was frustrating to him, and you can understand why. The substitution was planned before the goal happened, and then it went through. Asked about it after the match, Frank Klopas cited that the game on Saturday and needing to keep fresh legs, which I think a lot of a lot of people, including myself, rightfully sort of questioned. If you need points, and I'm gonna like throw some math at people, so just follow me here. 3 is bigger than 1, and it's bigger than 2. And there were 3 points
news
on offer if the team got a win against a weak Orlando side, versus a draw is just 1 point. And then against the Galaxy, who are a much better team, you're not guaranteed any kind of result. And maybe you're playing for a draw, and maybe you're playing for nothing. So it seemed like if you're going to go for points, that would have been the match, and keep your best players on for as long as possible.
Yeah, and especially because after that goal, Chicago were on the forefront. They were essentially going pedal to the max, and they were producing chances after chances, crosses after crosses. The game ended up finishing with the Fire having 18 shots to Orlando's 9. Now, granted, both teams only had 2 on goal on target, but still the Fire were on. They were putting their foot on the gas. So a lot of people were, I guess, surprised or just disappointed that this is a sort of common substitution of Hugo Kuipers coming off fairly earlier, like around that 50th, 67th minute, and not playing the full thing. And a lot of people are like, why is Hugo Kuipers also our best defending player? Because a lot of times he also goes back to help in defense, which results in being out of position or having to run forward in order for something to happen. So
yeah, it's also worth saying, since after the match against Houston, which is the Fire's most recent win, Hugo Kuipers has now been involved either getting the goal or the assist in 3/4 of the Fire's offense. Which is, it's not like it's entirely a one-man show, because like you talked about the passes that were necessary to set up that goal that Kuipers scored, but he's been heavily involved, and not just as like a sniper, kind of like, goal merchant kind of player.
Yeah, like there were a lot of plays that were coming from in the midfield near the halfway line from him, like on the wing. And I remember people yelling, why is our striker on the wing that far behind? So,
yeah,
grumbly noises.
Now, you mentioned Arnaud Souquet, which, do we want to talk about why he was on the pitch?
Yes, so Arnaud Souquet was on the pitch because we had to unfortunately make an early substitution, I think around the 12th minute, with Andrew Gutman, who made his 7th straight start, 8th start overall. He had to leave, in the 12th minute to be replaced by Souquet, unfortunately, due to injury.
And it looked like the same leg that kept him out between the 2nd minute of the season opener against Philadelphia until March. Now, he did walk off under his own power, so that's a good sign. It might be a slight tear. It might be nothing. We don't have an update yet. But that's really unfortunate for him. He looked despondent coming off the pitch. Because he really, he was the difference maker for the Fire in their previous match.
Oh, in the last few games, he definitely has been the player to mention. Especially like in the game against DC, him being a huge factor to the goal we scored as well. It would just be unfortunate to add him to the list of Chase Gasper and Tobias Selquist of injuries. So, yeah.
And then speaking of Fede, Navarro went down a little later. I think basically in the exact same spot too.
Yeah, that was before the goal. Federico Navarro looked like he also injured his right leg, which had already been taped up, and he had been out earlier with an injury to that leg. So that's unfortunate. It's a little ironic, because I think that was what made the initial contact with the Orlando player in the non-call that many people feel should have been a penalty. So in a way, I guess if you're an Orlando fan, it almost feels like it could be some sort of poetic justice or some kind of justice, at least, but
karma, maybe.
Yeah, but not, and again, no update on Navarro's status yet.
Yeah, we're going to probably be waiting. Maybe it'll be out by the time this episode comes out, but we'll see. But yeah, we don't want any more players to add to the list of missing players, along with the players I mentioned, plus Alan Aragona, who should be back because of yellow card accumulation. That's why he didn't play, as well as Jordan Shaqiri, who's on international duty. Eli, you had a video recently that mentioned a few players who you said should either get up or get out. And I think Shaq was at the forefront of it.
Yeah, he's someone that I've been very harsh on, and I think he's deserved that as well. I'm all for big names coming to the league if they look like they care, if they're trying, if they're playing well. I'm for that. But when someone looks like they're just taking a walk in the park, and Shaq is not, he doesn't like to run a lot, he doesn't move a lot. I'm very harsh on him, and I think just with the Chicago Fire just struggling, and I thought that this team could potentially, with the offseason you guys had, maybe pull something together. And the fact that he has worse numbers than Kevin Cabral, and he's the 4th highest paid player in the league, that's rough. And you can't be paying someone $8 million, I believe it is.
Yeah, about 8.2.
To do what he's done, 8.2. So that's why I was harsh on him. He's someone that I've been harsh on in the past, and usually when I'm harsh on players, they actually perform better. I don't think they watch my videos, but maybe they do. But it worked last year with Shaqiri a little bit, and it worked definitely with Alan Pulido. But apparently he might not get the opportunity to play better for Chicago, because at the second I did that, a ton of Chicago people were DMing me saying he might be done with the Fire now, like he might be leaving after the Euros. Is that true?
We have
very good chance.
We have sourcing that can confirm that the team is actively exploring options for him. Frank Klopas has been asked about it directly a couple of times now. And he's used measured but coded language, basically saying that this is the last year of his contract. It's quote unquote natural is a word that he's used to be thinking about his future direction and stuff like that. And the fact that he was allowed to depart early for the Swiss national team camp, multiple days before the camp even started, I think says a lot about sort of where things are in the relationship. Now, I mean, I will push back a little bit on saying that Shaqiri didn't care. Like I've been in the locker room with him after matches, and I've seen you can feel the energy that he has with a positive result or with a negative result. And I mean, it's not that he doesn't care. I just think that he never really was going to be the focal point of an attack on any team. It's like in MLS or elsewhere, he really wasn't elsewhere other than like a little while in Stoke. And expecting him to do that in MLS, I think, wasn't a reasonable expectation. And he was also asked to be a leader on the team. Like he was made team captain this season. And, he's always just struck me as kind of being more of like a one of the guys kind of player. Like it's not that he won't give advice to young players. Like I've seen him do that. Like I've seen him take time to like actually speak to like amateur players after an Open Cup match where he wasn't even in the game day roster. So like he's done that. Like it's not that he doesn't care, but it's just he's not going to be the kind of like on and off the pitch leader that you want from a team captain. It's just not in his personality.
Then I guess, and I do agree with that, because I've seen him with the Swiss national team, especially, where he isn't the guy, but like he's great at working off players a lot of times. But that's just like kind of bad investing on Chicago Fires. You're going to pay someone that much that doesn't quite fit the bill. And he almost did for 1 year. I mean, his first year was pretty solid. I know some fans weren't that happy, but he put up decent numbers, and it's just the numbers he's put up this year. I was kind of, I when the salary guide comes out, I like to reference that as much as possible. And that's kind of where that video idea came from. And that's why I had to talk about Shaqiri. And I stand by what I said with that. And I guess he is going to actually get the F out.
It seems like it. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Which, again, like it's never a player's fault what they're paid. Like they have agents, and like they should be trying to get every dollar they can, because like you don't know where your career is going to be. Like that's fair. But in terms of like the people making the decision to put the roster together and offer that money, I think you're right. Like it's like he was never the guy. He was never going to be the focal point in the attack. So why are we offering that money to the guy? Why are we deciding to give this guy a contract that lasts that many years? Like that, you wonder what the thinking was like in the front office.
Yeah, and I mean, another player that comes to mind when it comes to financials is Kai Kamara. Someone pointed out that what he was making at the Fire to what he's now making at LAFC, and even previously before that is
in Montreal. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah,
he's basically been paid the senior minimum every year except when he's with the Fire. And more than just that, the Fire also spent significant amounts of GAM to acquire him, which made his cap hit that much better. And I don't, to some extent, like it just in terms of like roster composition, I don't care how good you are or you're not. I care if in a capped league, if you're outperforming your cap hit, and the Fire have been spectacularly bad at getting guys that outperform their cap hit. Other than some homegrown players, most of whom sort of like predate Georg Heitz and this sort of like current front office in terms of like being brought up in the academy system. They get some credit for like signing Chris Brady. That you can give them credit for signing, like John Duran and then selling him for so much money. Like that's fair. But the other side of it is just like offering a bunch of players more money than they're worth, including Shaqiri, right? Who like for a while was like a performed at like a good high TAM player level and was one of the highest paid players for the entire time that he's been here.
Yeah, and I like what you said about outperforming their cap hit, because that was what I kind of mentioned with another player that I talked about in that video was Timo Pukki, where Oluwaseyi is making basically the senior minimum, and he has double the amount of goals as Pukki, and he's making like 80% less or whatever I said in that. That's that type of thing. But yeah, it's unfortunate because I also felt like the Shaqiri fit didn't quite work with Chicago because you guys wanted him to play more centrally, and I've never seen him play centrally before. So that might have been, just one of the things that you guys kind of bared onto him. But yeah, it's unfortunate because I like, when you hear Shaqiri's coming, you like the idea of it, and I like the idea of it when he was announced. It's a somewhat big name, respectable name, coming to Chicago who really deserves that type of player. And it does suck that's like just not gonna. It didn't pan out, and no playoffs for that. But I don't want to hurt you guys too much right now because we're about to get into this match preview.
I don't think there's really much. Yeah, I don't think there's really much that can hurt us as much more. When in Chicago, I guess.
To make things worse, we're White Sox fans, so.
Oh my days! Don't even get me started.
Okay. We are used to depression.
I'm a Clippers fan, so I understand as well.
No, we get to share some remorse, I guess. But yeah, like you mentioned, preview. So we have one and only one home game in June because God bless MLS scheduling that during the best time of the year to be in Chicago, in my opinion, which is during the summer, we have like 3 home games, not counting Leagues Cup, I guess. So if I'm correct, we have like 1 in June, 2 in July. Oh, and 1 in August, but that's of a specific team.
Yeah.
2 in August, yeah.
Yeah, the Fire's schedule is catching up with them. The front loading of a lot of the matches, the team actually did a pretty good job keeping home and away matches more or less equal, like earlier when it's colder than most fans really want to be outside, I thought. But they've now, like, they're coming up on, I believe, their 9th or 10th home match. So, limited numbers left. And that's unfortunate just given how big the home bias is in MLS.
One thing I got to say is, and I guess I don't want to, I got to be careful about how much I trash talk because that always comes back to bite me and I don't want to ruin it. But what I will say is your home atmosphere this weekend might not feel so much like a home atmosphere. Because this is, as someone who's like in the Galaxy, in a Galaxy supporter group and, talking with those guys every day, this is the match that most fans are traveling for. And we're traditionally really good at, traveling. We're one of the best. And everyone's hyping up the Chicago match because there's not a allocated amount of seats given to Galaxy fans. It's like really unlimited. So hopefully we'll show up in big numbers this week and I have a lot of friends who are going to be there. I'm jealous that I'm not going to be there. But I'm excited to hear on TV the crowd that we're going to bring. And hopefully it rivals you guys in your home. But then again, I feel bad for like
no, that's like honestly, it's like one of the good things to see, and one of the things I will kind of give the Fire credit for is like not capping, or like it really would be an artificial cap because like that's clear. Like when you've got a building that seats like over 60,000 people and you've hit that once, like you're like, oh no, we don't have room for you. Like it's not like something you can claim, but it is something that some teams have tried. And you know, on top of that, other teams are just like trying to like play games with like the number that are allocated and stuff like that. So, or like putting them in a place where they're very contained away from places that they can make noise. Like here you are in front of like, you know, the pre-academy like U12s, and you're like, okay, well, we're not going to bang drums around them, I guess, you know. So I'm going to give the team credit for that, but you know, I think the Fire have had pretty decent crowds so far this year. Like I think that it's partly been, you know, sales and marketing and stuff like that, and partly like the sort of like second degree Messi effect. But first match in June, the weather's not going to be great, but I still think there's going to be a pretty decent crowd out. Like they've been,
yeah, and when it comes to like the supporter culture, I know that everyone, that's what I think that's like the second thing on everyone's talk list when it comes to Fire games below the team's performance is our supporter culture not being what it should be in comparison to other teams. But I personally feel like we're making, like the team's making with their goals, baby steps into making a better, into, I guess, uniting sort of our supporter culture. I had to explain it to the British kids yesterday, like why there's a group that's doing something different to what we're doing. And they were like, that's kind of weird. But like there were times when we did manage for a really decent amount of time to do stuff all together. And I was sort of talking about it before we hit record. And I think you sort of heard a bit about it, is how we have the problem of what we call the picnic section, where you have either families or group trips that will sit between the sections and not actually support. So I don't know if you've ever have seen that, like people going into the supporter section not supporting. Like personally, have you ever seen that in the Galaxy?
Yeah, it's usually, I mean, not anymore because we're actually selling our section out now, but you know, the last few years we hadn't been. But it's generally just because supporter section seats are cheaper.
No,
So
exactly. Yeah, it's usually the
especially for, like,
cheapest as well.
Yeah, like unfortunately the Messi Miami match at Dignity Health Sports Park, there were probably the fewest amount of like actual supporters in the supporter section that I've seen at a Galaxy match, just probably because they were the cheapest seats to buy, and that was a little unfortunate because that's when we want that type of matches when we want to be the loudest.
yeah.
But yeah, I have seen that, and I understand. I remember I actually went to the Chicago Fire match in Soldier Field a couple years ago, and I remember that picnic area. That was interesting, an interesting ad. I definitely want to. I wish I could have gone back and seen it this weekend, but yeah, I will say though, your guys' stadium and your supporter section, but also just the stadium in general, felt more filled when I was there than it looks on TV.
That's low key what it kind of feels like as well. It always feels like whenever you're sitting in the crowd, it feels like there's a bit more than what it looks like on TV, as well as when it comes to numbers. But yeah, that's something that me and other supporters from both parties are hoping to either not resolve, but like work towards it being better, that the supporter section is more for supporting rather than for picnicking. And it also just doesn't help that we have the usual Soldier Field chairs. Like a lot of stadiums have actual like standing supporter sections, and usually their stadiums are a lot more compliant and willing to work with supporters as in comparison to Soldier Field. So
yeah, and the stadiums, like the chairs actually were designed to be removable. So that's the sort of like,
which is weird because like they always would complain about supporters standing on the chairs, saying that they're going to break them or something like that. And it's like, if Soldier Field and the Park District really cares about the chairs being broken, why not just remove them?
Yeah, I've asked. I've been cited ADA concerns, which I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It just, that's just something when I look at other teams and their like sections, and like you have like actual like standing sections, and just the way it's built is just different to what we have. But you know, you got to work with what you got. So Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel bad with the fact that you guys don't really have your own stadium. You share with the Bears, so it's going to be more towards them, and that's why you don't have like the standing room only kind of section. So I feel bad that you guys have to deal with that. But like you said, working with what you got, and I do think you guys deserve a bit more credit, like your supporter groups, with how lit you guys are. I see the videos that you post, Alan. So it's like I think you guys are underrated, or just maybe just. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Just you guys deserve better.
The best way, the best way I can. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to cut you off, but the best way I can describe it is that a lot of supporters, and especially the older ones, from the ones that have been here since 1998, are just a bit tired of putting so much work towards the club and like making sure that the tailgates are bumping, that the section is bumping, that we've got flags, that we have instruments. A lot of them are just getting tired, not just of the team performance, but just of people's, I guess, egos, like rearing in, and that, that stuff like this happens, and that, yeah, essentially. But hopefully, I feel like something can be worked out, but maybe in it, but that's just me, I guess. Being young, naive, and optimistic.
Well, I think it's one of those things where if you look at the results, like I think that you have to say that what has been happening is closer to the floor than it is the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some things that I think MLS has gotten better with the production on TV this year, where the microphones were located for some stadiums, I think including Soldier Field, made the supporters sound quieter in some venues than they would feel in stadium. I think some venues did a better job of that last year. I think that they've gotten better around the league this year with stuff like that to give like a better sense of what the atmosphere is actually like.
Yes. DJ, you had one more thing to say.
I will add to the Soldier Field discussion. They horribly messed up Soldier Field's redesign.
That's true. And I mean, that's something that everyone knows, that the UFO landing on top of the historic stadium and removing the landmark status, that's something we all know. Everyone in Chicago and sports knows.
Now that I think about it, was the person that redesigned it just an Ancient Aliens fanatic?
Maybe. I have no idea.
Oh, no, it's even worse.
They
had a budget.
I still have my little model of Soldier Field that they gave, I think, at the last game, where they gave the first few thousand fans a little model Soldier Field from back in 1998 when the team started. I think it's pretty neat. All right, let's talk about the game.
I'll give you $10 for it.
Oh. Let's talk about the game. And Eli definitely will be able to help us as a hardcore Galaxy supporter I've seen your videos as well in the supporter section for the Galaxy. So you definitely know this team a lot better than we do, which is why you're going to help us with this. So you guys on a pretty decent form. You guys had a 3-1 victory over Dallas, and then most recently a 2-1 victory over Houston. 6-game undefeated streak. Granted, 4 of those were draws, followed by the 2 wins. Only 2 losses this season, tied for the fewest in MLS. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. Sort of you sort of alluded to it earlier, Tim, that this game for the Fire is going to be, especially since they didn't pick up more against Orlando, is going to be it's going to be interesting.
So, Eli, you want to give us the 30,000-foot view on how the season's been going?
Yeah, I mean, this season has been fantastic for Galaxy fans so far, especially compared to where we were last year. And actually, today, as we're recording this, marks the 1-year anniversary of when we fired Chris Klein, who was our president that we all protested, and he was the biggest cancer to the club ever. And at this point last year, I think we had like 13 points, and now we're at 28, I believe. Second in the West. This is the best we've been in years, really, the best start we've had in years. And it's all because of our boy Will Kuntz, our GM, who's been cooking up some amazing signings, including our new winger core of Joseph Paintsel and Gabriel Peck. Painsel's out right now, but Gabriel Peck is finally coming into his own. He's looking great on the right flank. And, I don't want to be too confident in any match, but I feel a little sorry right now for what may or may not happen to the Chicago Fire this weekend.
Well, this is not going to be news to anyone that also reads our website in addition to listening to the podcast, because it'll be out before this. But we have like the writers do a panel prediction thing, and everyone is predicting at least 3 goals for the Galaxy. No one is predicting more than 1 goal for the Fire. So that's more or less the run. And again, like if you want, if I like, I haven't done this yet, but if you look at the record, we'll just say that they're not biased against the Fire.
I will say the key for the Galaxy usually is if we score first, and if we score early, it's kind of over. That's been the story for the Galaxy season. Even if a team has, like last night against Dallas, we scored the first goal, they scored the second. Either way, like for some reason, like we never felt like we were going to drop any points after scoring that first. And that's happened many times across the season for the Galaxy. They have been able to come back from deficits as well, which has been great. That was one thing we were good at last year, and that continued this year where, even a couple weeks ago, we were down 2-0 against RSL, and we came back and drew 2-2, which was huge. But we have that ability, but, if the Galaxy are able to play their game, it's definitely very difficult for the opponent. The only time we've really been outplayed this season was in that Austin loss where they really took it to us. They exploited every single weakness we had. And that was the only game I felt like it genuinely felt like a loss. Whereas, the LAFC match, we had the controversies and all that stuff with VAR. But I'm just wondering, with you guys, how do you guys view, or what would you say are your guys' biggest weaknesses? Because I want to kind of bounce off how I think the Galaxy could attack.
So let's put it this way: the Fire haven't scored multiple goals this season since their 2-1 win over the Dynamo on April 6th. So they had a scoring drought that lasted multiple matches. They had one of the longest, or actually the longest, home scoring drought in history. So offense has been a problem. Chance creation has really been a problem. Hugo Kuipers, I think most Fire fans would credit as doing a good job working with the opportunities that he's had. It's just that he hasn't had a lot of opportunities, which is why, he's projecting to finish at like 8 goals this season and not like 15 or 20. The Fire teams for the past decade, and this is one of those things that like people are like, how do you fix this ship when you've changed coaches, you've changed players, you've changed everything about the team, but the same problems remain. Susceptible to plays off of set pieces. Apparently there's some blind invisible cloak thing available in the visitors locker room that you can put on a guy to when they're going on the back post off of corners, because the Fire have left guys like Sergio Oregel completely unmarked off of corners, which I still can't really explain.
Happens to us as well.
So no, he's a very, there's a reason that he's got as many goals as he does, but just not having anyone near the guy, I think is one of the issues. And the problem, I think, is that a criticism, I think, against Atlanta right now is that like they've never been over the past couple seasons like better than the sum of their parts. I think one of the issues with the Fire is that there's a lot of parts that individually look good on the roster, but the sum never really adds up to close to what they should be. It's also going to be a kind of banged up roster. Toby Salquist, who was brought in on a 7-figure transfer fee as a center back to help stabilize the back line, is out with a leg injury. He won't be back until after the international break. Andrew Gutman, who has been the Fire's best player over the past couple of matches when they really started playing better, left in the 12th minute with what looks, unfortunately, like it could be a repeat of the leg injury that kept him out earlier on. So it's stuff like that I think is gonna hurt the Fire as much as anything else, because it's hard to get into a rhythm when like really the guy that has been the best player for the Fire over the past matches, other than maybe Chris Brady in net, again goes down with an injury.
And I think that's where the Galaxy are gonna maybe take the game, is because we are dominant on the right side, which would be Gutman's side when you reverse the sides of pitch. And I think if left back is going to be a weakness for you this coming weekend, that might be where it ends, especially in transition for the Galaxy. That's where we've been the most dominant, and especially even if it's through the center, Ricky finding a winger making a run on the right side. if your left back's going to get caught lacking, or they're known to get caught lacking, that's kind of where the Galaxy thrive on the attack. So that's probably going to be where the Galaxy might take a goal or two from you guys.
The Galaxy also look like they've been fantastic at, like, instead of relying on crosses into the box, like controlled short little passes into the box.
Finally.
Which are something the Fire have had an issue dealing with.
Okay, that's good to know. One thing I will say that you don't have to worry about is set piece defending. We're terrible at set pieces, so don't even worry. We could barely score a pen, so don't even trip about that. We suck at defending set pieces, but also I don't think I can name a single goal the Galaxy have scored off a corner this year.
The Fire will give them an own goal. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, this will be the time that the set piece defending of the Fire. It's like sort of like what happens when an unstartable force meets an object that can readily be moved. So we'll find out. But on the other end of the pitch, I think that the Fire typically they're pretty cross heavy on offense. And I think that that's been, I mean, I've criticized them about this before, because when you settle for a cross, you're basically taking possession and settling for like a 50-50 ball. But it's like maybe more like a 30-30-30 ball, where maybe you get it, maybe a player on the other team gets it, maybe it just sails out, and then it's either a goal kick or it doesn't really do anything with the possession. And I think that reliance on crosses hasn't been great, especially with Gutman out, who's been the most successful crosser from the Fire.
Just an over reliance on aerials. Like, this team just loves to bounce the ball too much in the air instead of just keeping it on the ground.
Having said all,
I'd say we're pretty weak in the air. By the way, we're pretty weak in the air.
Which is so. Carlos Terán, the center back, is tall. He's big. He's physical. He has throw-ins that basically count as free kicks with his ability to get like both speed and distance on them. But he occasionally can make his way into the box and be like a big physical presence on offense if he's able to join in. He had a goal 2 matches ago. Am I counting right? I don't know. Maybe 3. Time is a flat circle. But it was one of those things where he just was able to use his physical ability to get into the box and get in the right place and score a goal. And the Fire haven't been particularly dangerous on set pieces, which I know have been a defensive liability for the Galaxy. I will say the thing they've kind of got going for them is that they have really been relying on Shaqiri to sort of quarterback a lot of those set pieces, whether we're talking about corners or free kicks or stuff like that. I don't think the delivery's really been there. I mean, that's a common thing. Like, how many times have we seen like Christian Pulisic take a corner and we're like, why do we think Christian Pulisic should still be taking corners if you're a U.S. men's national team fan, right? But it's been an issue with the Fire. Now that he won't be there for this one, maybe that means that like the delivery will improve. My guess would be like Kellen Acosta taking corners, maybe Brian Gutierrez.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, do we want to give some score predictions? Why not start off with our guest, Mr. Eli?
I mean, I like what a lot of your writers were saying. 3-1 sounds very nice to me. I'll go with that.
I'm the only one that guessed 3-1. So, yeah.
Oh.
Everyone else was like 3. It was either 3-0, 3-1, 3-0, lots of 3-0s, or a 4-1.
I feel like we don't have many clean sheets this year, so I could see guys. I could see you guys.
That was my logic too. It's like it seemed like the back line is porous enough where they're not going to keep a clean sheet, but I mean, they're also going to score more the other way.
All right, DJ, you got a prediction?
Eli, who is the LA Galaxy's biggest depth piece right now?
Depth piece?
Offensively.
Well, he'll probably be starting. Oh, defensively?
Offensively.
Jalen Neal. Oh, offensively. Well, he's probably going to be starting, but Diego Fagundes is generally. But I'd say for heading into this match, someone who came off the bench yesterday and looked really good is homegrown Johnny Perez. And he looked amazing, and a lot of Galaxy fans after the match were talking about how he needs to be playing more. But he is definitely our best offensive player off the bench. I don't think anyone in their mother would say Miguel Berry is our best, but we kind of lack depth up there for sure.
Okay, what I'm going to say is Diego Fagundes scores a hat trick against the Fire. It's 4-0. And the Fire in the summer window make a transfer for Diego Fagundes in exchange for the rights to a Discovery player.
I would agree with that. However, I will say Diego Fagundes is being paid 1.3 mil. I don't know if that's something you guys want to take on.
He's over. You're saying he's overpaid?
Well, so I don't because I like Diego Fagundes as a person. But he is an expensive
outperforms his contract.
Say.
No, that sounds exactly like the kind of Fire the Fire target that they want to get in a transfer window.
I just want a Mike McGee repeat. That's all I want.
Yeah, I like Diego, so I'm not going to say anything negative about him, especially because he does play very well, but he is a very expensive depth piece.
It's one of those things, again, like you like never blame a player for like what they make, because like honestly, like one, it's talking about like billionaires giving money to millionaires for the most part, so like who cares? But the other side of it is like you don't know, your career is short, like they should make every dollar they can. Like don't blame them for that. Not their fault to blame the people that decided to pay them that.
And yeah, I think he's underperforming his contract, but he's performing up to par for his role. That makes sense.
Yeah, he's doing what is being asked for him by Greg Vanney, but not again, like and Greg Vanney didn't negotiate his contract either, so it's like you work the piece you've got and you make do with what you can.
It feels weird.
He's almost being paid the same amount of Suarez, which is crazy to think about, but yeah.
It feels weird that Diego Fagundes is not even 30 yet, and he's been in MLS for literally over a decade now.
He's been in as long as I could remember watching MLS. I feel like he's been there. But yeah, I love the guy, so I got no complaints about him. But shout out to him. I mean, he probably will break the most MLS appearances, assuming he stays in the league long enough.
Well, as a guy that remembers Kobe Jones playing for the Galaxy, I feel very old now.
Yeah. All right.
To be fair, Tim, you are very old.
There.
So I'm gonna give a more fair or like a more optimistic prediction of another 1-1. I feel like baby steps are being taken, and I feel like we're gonna have a few more of these.
One thing that I also feel like needs to be added in, the Fire have not beaten the Galaxy since 2010.
Really? I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
The last time the Fire beat the Galaxy, Landon Donovan got a brace, and Marco Papa, Collins John, and Mike Banner scored the winning goals for the Fire.
Shout out Marco Papa. That dude's a MLS legend 100%. Right there. He's a streets won't forget. Yeah, I love it. Oh my god.
I love him. However, Guatemala does not love him very much right now.
Yep.
Oh, what happened?
If I remember correctly, he got arrested for assaulting his wife.
Oh dear.
Well, lots of people don't love him.
I rescind everything I just said about Marco Papa.
Ball isn't the person.
But I think he got released. If I remember correctly, he got released or something like that. But the whole story for Marco Papa is just a weird story. Like the man.
Damn, I didn't know about that one.
No, neither do we. But wow.
No, thank you.
Well, that makes
DJ.
You want to make it worse? There are several former Fire players that got arrested for domestic assault.
Oh my days.
Okay, well, we're ending this one on a really low note.
This is why you're our local resident historian, I guess. So
this is why I'm the autism one here.
Incroyable as always, DJ. Well, thank you, Eli, for joining us on this episode as always. To help in the episode as a whole, as well as previewing for the Galaxy. Any words of wisdom you want to say for our audience?
To all of the Chicago Fire fans, hang in there. I hope it gets better. I can't promise anything, but keep supporting your club. And I would recommend doing some sort of protest if you feel. I mean, if I were you guys, I would feel that the situation's bad enough to require some sort of thing, especially after that email, because an email like that is what started the Klein out protests. And I think this is, you're that type of situation. So if you feel like you've had enough and you want to make real change, we've proven in MLS that supporters can actually make that change. So I'm hoping that you guys can do that, because Chicago deserves to have a quality MLS team and one of the best teams. Y'all are a major market, and I need y'all to act like one. So that's where I stand there.
Amen. I say.
So what you're telling us is we just need to like get rid of our Chris Klein, and then eventually we'll find our own redeeming president.
You got to hire the right person.
We'll find our Will Kuntz sooner or later.
Yeah, find him. Just take whoever is doing well for Columbus right now. I think, what's his name? Or someone tried to pull the guy from
Tim
Columbus,
Bezbatchenko, or
but not Will Finanzi, but the
Tim Bezbatchenko. Yeah, no, that's I think that's got to be like the smartest move in MLS. Just like find the largest bag of money you possibly can and offer it to Tim Bezbatchenko.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. I mean, that's essentially what the Galaxy did. They looked at what LAFCs were doing. They're like, hey, doing well. Let's just get their second in command, or let's get their guy. That's what you guys should be doing. Get Bezbatchenko, and you guys will be top dogs. You guys will win CONCACAF next Saturday if that's what you want to do. But I will say, as someone, I consider you guys an MLS OG team, even though you came in 2 years later. But as someone who also supports an MLS OG team, like I'm here for you guys, and I do support you guys more than I support more of the newer clubs, and would rather see you guys succeed more than most of the clubs out there. So all love from Galaxy fans to Chicago fans, but I hope we smack you guys on Saturday.
Well,
thanks.
And then after that, we will not be seeing you in the conference final or in the MLS Cup final, but maybe we will be watching the MLS Cup final with another team from the East.
All right. Well, ladies and germs and they thems of the fire, thank you as always for listening to this midweek review of this incredible time, I guess. Incredible, maybe not in a more positive light, but it is what it is. I, as always, have been Alan the Pole with the Goal, joined by DJ Tim and special guest Eli Lesser. Check him out at Eli Lesser TV on social media. And as always, come on, you men in red.